Are you ready to embark on a journey of success? To discover your true potential in the untold stories of careers in life sciences? Welcome to PATHFINDER by the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. With your host, Tommy Soares, discover the untold stories of industry scientists and unveil the secrets to excelling in your career. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Soares. I'm the Director of Scientific Strategy and Relations for the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. And today on Pathfinder, I am welcoming, and I'm thrilled to welcome David Giltner, the founder and CEO of TurningScience, a company dedicated to teach scientists how business works and how product development is done so that they can transition from their academic training into rewarding industry careers. David is an internationally recognized lecturer and the author of 3 books on the vital role scientists play in industry. After 20 years in the laser and photonics industry, he left his job and started TurningScience to help scientists work in the private sector as employees, entrepreneurs, or academic collaborators. David has a BS and a PhD in physics and holds 7 patents. In his free time, he plays in a rock band called Gravity Check, which is pretty good. I think you should check it out. I listened to a couple songs too, and he loves hiking, cycling in the beautiful mountains of Colorado in the United States. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much, David, for spending time with us and taking my invitation to be our Pathfinder today.
Thank you so much, Tommy. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
I've been so intrigued ever since I found you online on LinkedIn. I've been so curious to know, man, like, how did you get into this? You might have seen so many things that just happen as scientists transition from academia into industry. You might have experienced so much of this. And I thought, this program is focused on careers for scientists. And I do interviews of scientists in industry to show a lot of the academic scientists, well, what does it take to succeed in industry? And I've been fascinated by your, what you've been writing, your books, your company, and just the thrill of trying to pick your brain and see what we can get out of you today in this short period of time. So excited to talk to you.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's it's been a very fun adventure, so I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit. I mean, you started off in physics, and what was the initial passion there? What drove you down that path?
Yeah, boy, I've just always been curious. I love learning about things. I love figuring out how things work, and that's what drew me to science. Initially, when I was young, I wanted to be a doctor, like maybe many of us did. But I found I had an intuition for the physical sciences, and physics had less to memorize than chemistry or biology, and so I was into that. I'll never forget I think it was the first day in my college physics course. The professor said, "Well, we will work with a lot of equations here in this class, but you really only need to remember one, and that's F equals ma, and we can derive everything else from that." And I thought, I am in the right place.
I love that. Force is equal to mass times acceleration, and then everything else derives from there.
Yep.
That's great. That's great. So what was the experience like? I mean, you must have been right into the whole research and getting your
Yeah.
PhD, and what was that time like?
Well, so a lot of it was frankly following a traditional path, and this, yeah, it leads into, in a way, what I do now.
Yeah.
You like science, so you think, okay, I will declare a major in college. And as I just described, physics was worked best for that. And as I got further along, I thought, well, if I'm going to be a scientist, I guess I need a PhD because scientists have that. So I'll go to grad school. So I did that. And all along, I'm thinking, I guess that means I will be a professor because that's what scientists do. And so just following that traditional path until about the last year of my grad school experience, and about, 5.5 years in, I started to realize after watching my advisor and the other professors at in my university, that's not really the career I want. I love science. I love doing all this, but 5 years later, they were in the same office and working with the same people and the same projects. And this is an awesome career for many people, right? But I realized it's not for me. I wanted something more dynamic. And that's when I decided to go into industry. And that, of course, is, I'm sure you're aware, for many of us, is a big transition. It was when I did it, and it still is for a lot of people because nobody in a university generally knows anything about industry. This isn't always true, but it certainly was where I was. I remember the conversation with my advisor when she said, look, if you want a postdoc, I can help you. And that, set you up for a great academic career. But if you want to go into industry, you are on your own because I don't know anything about it. I don't know. And that was it. And so that put me on that struggle to find my first job. I mean, I had no idea what scientists might do in industry. I had no idea how to get a job. I just had to figure all that out. Of course, that leads into why I do what I do now, because I know the struggle and I have seen the results of that struggle. It's not just a matter of finding a job. We also don't really know what behaviors are needed in industry either. It's a very different environment, and so that leads to what I do now with Turning Science.
So, and we hear from the academic side, oh, the cultural differences between academic laboratories and industrial or corporate laboratories that are so different. What, and I feel like, are we doing our students a disservice, especially the grad students, by not teaching them more of this? And I know there are some internship opportunities and things are opening up a little bit more, but how is it, having gone through that experience, how is it that you think we should be doing better in academia to prepare our scientists that do want to go into industry?
Yeah, so great point. So I'll back up a little. I do think we're doing them a disservice. I
Hmm.
think we can do it a lot better. Let me put it that way, right? We can debate, well, what is the purpose of university? But we can do it better because most scientists, and it is the grad students that struggle the most, we're trained to be academic researchers, and we go into industry where the environment is very different. You're going from an environment that is designed to create new knowledge, very valuable, now into one that is trying to create a profit. And that is very different. We can do a lot better. We're trained to be independent, and we make that transition. We carry those habits with us, and we struggle. I've spoken to many scientists who have struggled. I remembered myself, the struggles I had. I've also spoken to many industry managers who complain about their PhDs not having the right thinking and working habits. And there's a real problem here that we can improve.
Yeah.
What I think universities can do is bring more of industry into academia.
Hmm.
They are very different cultures, but one of the things that I've been working with a lot in the last few years is industry collaboration. It's been my focus. I teach a workshop on that, trying to help uh, researchers, academic researchers, collaborate with industry because it's a great way to bring industry into the lab so that the PhDs, postdocs, master students who are working in that lab get an understanding of what industry is about, what the
Sure.
thinking and working habits. That is one big thing they can do. The other thing they can do is they can bring in outside training, people with industry experience, which is another part of what I do, of course.
Yeah.
Um, People who have lived and worked in industry to teach the students what the game of industry is all about.
Yeah. So as you were transitioning and you landed your first industry job, Um, do you remember what was the most shocking thing that you're like, oh, I didn't even know this occurred, or this was like this versus how I thought it was going to be?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, there are many dimensions to that, and it happened over a period of time. My first job, I was working in a lab. It was a laser company, and I was helping finish a government contract, an SBIR contract, right, which is something in the US. And so somehow the day-to-day work seemed a lot like grad school. I'm just trying to get this project to work. But the gaps were when I'd stick my head out of the lab and see beyond just that thing. That, yeah, I'm supposed to be getting this project to work, but the pace was very different. The purpose behind it was very different.
Mm.
Just business in general moves faster. And it is not the search for something novel and interesting that I had gotten so used to and really liked in an academic environment. It is very pragmatic. It is about solving problems quickly and moving on. You have to sacrifice understanding sometimes and say, I'd love to understand this better, but we've got it working and it's fine for the customer and we need to move on to something else. I think that was the biggest shock. I kind of thought of myself as I have this PhD and it is my job to dig into the unknown elements of the universe and figure that out. And that was true in university, but that's not true in industry. Now I need to solve problems and help us do things. And it's a very exciting shift, right? At first, it feels like, ooh, that's not what I thought I would do with my career. But as I learned more about it, I thought, wait a minute, this is actually really fun. And it's very cool to now see what people do with the stuff I build, right? And so
Yeah.
I like solving problems this way. And it it was a big change. It took me a while to figure out how to play that game. As you probably know from what my writing and stuff, I consider it's a game, not a formula.
Yes.
That
Yes.
tagline, right? Took me a while to learn that, but it's a fun game, and I really enjoy it, and many of us do. So yeah, that was
And
the big shift.
you know what I think it's so awesome to take that perspective of a game, but it's a game where it's almost like there's no failures. There's no like you get to play. Yes, there are ups, there's downs, there's changes in journeys and so on, but the game is always progressive, always looking forward, futuristic. As you said, you can't get too bogged down with unknowns and like, is it working? Is it good enough to keep making progress? And I love that perspective of like, okay, yeah, the game you got to play in order to
Mhm.
make the progress. And you have to play according to the rules, right?
Right. Well, that's the interesting thing about it that makes games so interesting. Yes, there are rules you need to follow, and you shouldn't break the rules. Now, of course, we all meet people out there who do break the rules, lie, cheat, steal, whatever. But you can play the game and follow the rules. And yet within that, there are many different ways to win. It is very different. In a search for knowledge, you're trying to find the right answer. That's the formula approach that I talk about, right? Take physics, F equals ma that's the equation we came up with. And there are many others,
Yeah.
many other formulas. And if there is a right answer, that means there are many ways to be wrong and to get it wrong. And this is the way school was from the time we started. We learned it's about the right answer. You answer the test questions correctly and you get an A and your parents are happy and your
Yes.
teacher's happy, right? But there are many ways to be wrong. And this is what we learned. But in a game, sure, there are rules to follow and you don't want to break the rules, but there are many ways to win. And if you lose one particular game or something doesn't work, get back in there and try it again. You can win the next one. Keep learning and practicing and get better
Yeah.
and find a way that you can win with your strengths and your experience and you know, there's no like, oh, I don't have what it takes to do this here and look at other people and think if I don't do it the way they do, I'm going to lose. No, you can find a way to win the game with your strengths. That's what's so fun about it and so cool about it.
And I've been intrigued also to find out when did you first get the inspiration to start writing about it? And was it, was it as you were transitioning? Because I think you were probably like in this whirlwind of a new environment, new culture, and so on. But I wonder, like, when was that trigger that you said, "Oh, I need to document this. I need to document the experience. I need to make it so that others can be helped through the experience that I had."
Yeah, great question. I mean, there was a time it started slowly and I had no idea where it would go at the time. But back in 2009, I was working for a company that made laser-based datacom transceivers. It had been a startup that was acquired by a much larger company. And at some point, they shut our site in Colorado here down. They shut it down. And if I wanted to move to California, I could keep my job. Otherwise, I was without a job. And during that time, before I found my next job, it was in a recession. I was at that point, I was far enough along in my career. I was kind of picky about what I wanted. I met a guy who had his own business helping people publish interview books, where you think of something you're interested in and you go out and interview a bunch of people who do it and you write a book on it. And I thought, wow, it would be cool to have a book because I could do a speaking circuit on a book. And I don't know why, but it just sounded interesting, right? Well, that turned into my first book, Turning Science into Things People Need. And because I was job searching at the time, I thought, well, hey, I should interview scientists who work in industry because I was reminded of that challenge that I had learned a lot about it, but that challenge of convincing somebody at a company that I, as a PhD scientist, can help them. I remembered the struggles from when I had no idea how to do that. And I thought, this would be a great book. I would love to have had this book when I graduated with my PhD. So I will write this book. I'll interview a bunch of scientists, put their stories in this book, and this would be the book I wish I had had.
Yeah.
And so that was 2010. And I started a speaking circuit. And it was through that that I realized there was more to do here. You know, you asked about starting to write and everything else,
Yes.
because I started getting invited to universities and conferences. And I started meeting so many different scientists who had the same struggles. And I realized, yeah, this is a real thing. But I also had had enough industry experience at the time. I had spoken to plenty of industry managers. I was a hiring manager myself, and I thought I saw the other side of PhD scientists coming into industry.
Mhm.
They've got lots of skills, lots of things that have value, but they don't understand the game, and it takes them a while to be productive. And some really struggle. So my wife is a psychologist. She says the lessons we learn early, we learn well. And this is so true. We're trained in those formative years to be academic researchers, and we go into industry thinking we know the game, we're independent. It's very different than somebody who graduates with a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
They've got skills, but they know they're green. They know they don't know the environment, and their boss, their new manager knows the same thing. PhD, you're expected to be independent. That's what, and we are in the right environment. The problem is we move into a place where the game is different, and if we don't understand that right away, because no one trains you and tells you, here's the game now, you struggle. And it was through that, as I started traveling and speaking, started getting invited internationally, and I realized this is a real problem and I think I can do something about it. It took time and I started writing more. I started giving more talks. I decided I can do a lot more than just this 1 hour seminar. I've been talking, can a scientist find a rewarding career in industry, right? And ultimately, that's what led to me leaving I found a job in that job search. Seven
Yes.
years later, I left that job and started turning science to do something much bigger with it.
Yeah, that and it's so inspiring too for a guy like me that I never pursued a faculty position, probably very much with the same type of reasoning that you explained. I looked around and I said, well, I love science, but I think that I have some other element here that maybe other faculty don't have. And I like working with people. I like different types of sciences, right? And so I had that maybe I want to stick around with scientists, but I'll carve out my own career path here, and that's essentially what, with the help, obviously, of several people at the university, that I've tried to do. But I haven't had this example of what you're giving, that you went through academic sciences, you went through industry sciences, and then you realize, okay, wait a minute, I'm passionate right about this part of it. And maybe you went through turmoil to identify that passion of, like, hey, I can help scientists. But what was this realization of, like, my goodness, there's such a need here, and it's not only our small perspective from our own country here, but, as you said, an international perspective, where this is real. And it's really happening all over the world, where scientists are starting jobs in industry.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it is many of us find just what you described. We love science. We've got skills that work well in science, but that traditional path, that, fairly narrow path that is great for some, it's an awesome career for many, doesn't work for all of us. There are many other things we can do, but if we don't see that, we don't even know how to imagine what that
Right.
career could be, right? But there is so much opportunity out there if you try something you think might work and get into it and learn about it, but always be looking around. You can design a career path that is very exciting and is just what you wanted. I've had several career pivots myself. Even in the time I was in the laser industry, that may sound like that was one path, but I started in a lab job and then I moved into leading projects and learning about project management and product development. And at one point, I started visiting customers. At one point, I was leading a field operations team. And then I moved into business development and essentially technical sales, all kinds of different things that were such a variation on where I started. Each one of those new opportunities taught me a lot too. I often say I have learned skills in my jobs that help me in my personal life, in general, because sure, it's business, but it's working with people to solve hard problems. And those skills are so broadly useful. And you attach that to the technical skills that I got as a grad student. Boy, there's so much you can do with that. And that's why I feel so strongly scientists belong out of academia. There are so many things we are needed for. We've got great problem solving skills, analytical thinking that is very rare, and lots of problems to solve. We belong out in the world doing
Yes.
all kinds of different things. And so it is good for scientists and is good for the world if we think more creatively about what we want to do with our strengths and our careers.
Yeah. And so, what would you say are the biggest challenges, let's say, as we are facing those questions of, well, I really like science, but I'm not really sure that that traditional course or that traditional path is what I want to pursue. What should you do if that's where you are right now?
Yeah, so I think the two big challenges are understanding what other opportunities are out there and understanding how that game is different.
Right.
And so what you should do, I think, is get out and talk to people. I
Mm.
just think there's no substitute for that. You could call it informational interviews, is something that, that's a term you may hear of. You find people who are doing some things that you think might be interesting. Could be a career, it could be a hobby, it could be a volunteer, anything, and just talk to them about what they do, right? We use the word interview. It's nothing like a job interview. It is just learning from people about what they do. So you find somebody and you say, could I spend 20 minutes on a Zoom call just to kind of pick your brain about your career, how you got here, what you love about it, what a typical day is like? Because people like to talk about themselves, frankly, right? And tell their stories. And that can open your eyes up so much to what they're doing. And you can find there are new opportunities. career as a science researcher professor is a great one, but it's very narrow compared to all the things we could do. And we just have no idea.
Yeah.
As you start to meet other people, whether they're scientists or not, and start to understand what strengths got them to where they are, what they like about it, most of us find, wow, that actually might be fun. If you'd told me when I was graduating with my PhD that one day I would work in business development and essentially technical sales, I would have said, no way. No, that because I had this bad idea of what that would be. And yet that was until I started my own company, that was the most rewarding work I'd ever done. And I never would have imagined it, only because I learned what it really is. You have to get out there and talk to people, and it completely changes your perspective on what you might be able to do and what you might enjoy doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And getting also people's, what they like, what they don't like about their jobs, right? And I think there's so much talk about work-life balance, but at this point in time, like your work-life balance can be very enjoyable to try to set up for yourself, right? There is I always thought, if you're enjoying what you're doing, then it's not really work. So
Yeah,
what work-life balance? What are you talking about? You know?
absolutely. I mean, that is what I experience now with Turning Science and what I do. My work, my life, it's all integrated. I sure there's work, but I blend it. It's stuff that I enjoy. I blend it with travel, which I enjoy. I blend it with many different things, and it becomes this spectrum of things that I do, some of which I get paid for, some of which I enjoy, some of which, and it's an integrated experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so, okay, so that you told us about your first book. Tell us about your second book.
So the second book, that's this one here. It's a game, not a formula. The cover doesn't show up well on camera, I noticed. That came out of so my first book, as I mentioned, I just interviewed scientists and told their stories. Very little of my own input. Flash forward to early 2020. I was traveling the world giving workshops, lots of my own. I have, several 2-day workshops, right? Lots of content and everything. And I thought at times, well, gee, now I have a lot of my own ideas. Maybe someday I'll write another book where I put my ideas into it. This whole idea of it's a game, not a formula. And how are the rules different? What do you need to know? March 2020 comes around. I was in Berlin. At the time, I had a month of business, workshops and things in Europe planned. And of course, COVID hit, travel bans. I had to fly home, cancel months of business. And I sat in my home office for a while. Of course, I was really unhappy about it, thinking, well, this really sucks. What am I going to do now? At some point, I thought, I make it a habit. Something like that happens to think, look, I can't change this. How can I embrace this and use it to my benefit? That's a far better attitude to take, right? Complaining doesn't get me anywhere. And I thought, well, maybe now is the time to write that book because I'm going to be sitting home for a while. And so that's when I decided to start on this. And it came out in 2021. By then, I was starting to travel again.
Yeah.
And it's in there that it gave me an opportunity to distill everything I'd been teaching in my workshops into a book. And so, we start with how is industry different than academia? This environment we're trained in, how does the game change? And there's 5 ways that it's different. More importantly, what are some habits that are really important for success? And so I list 5 habits that I say scientists who do well in industry learn quickly. And then I move on from that and I like to talk about it as the research mindset and the development mindset, the R&D mindsets, because we don't have to just do one or the other. We can approach some things where knowledge creation is important. That's the research mindset. And other things where you're trying to create a solution, which is
Yeah.
largely done in industry. That's the development mindset. Intelligent people can be more versatile if we figure out what is needed and go back and forth and bring some of that into every environment. I talk some about startups. Those are an interest of mine. And I say that's the ultimate game, right? Because, a lot of scientists are thinking about working for a startup or starting their own company.
Yeah.
And I mentor some of them. So there's a chapter on that. And then the last chapter is about approaching your career development like a game. Because again, there's no one right way to do that.
Right.
We tend to think that. I hear a lot of graduating students who they approach me and they say, if I want a career doing this, what do I need to have in terms of certifications and additional training? And they're thinking about more school and more trying to get it right, just like a
Mm,
formula. If I get all the things right, I'll get the job that I'm looking for. And I tell them that is not the way it works. You've got a PhD. You already have more training than most people on the planet. It's time to get out there and learn to play the game,
yeah.
figure out what you want to do, and help them see how you can help them. You probably don't need more training. And, in some places, certain certifications are important, but most part, that's part of the shift of thinking. Stop thinking about, do I have it all right?
Yeah.
And get out there and convince people, show them how you can help them solve the problems that they have, and they'll be willing to hire you very quickly.
And that is such great wisdom there, because I think, like there is so much that they teach us on how to be critical thinkers and in the PhD, right? If anything, I think a lot of people have this misconception that you finish your PhD and now you're the world-renowned specialist in that area that you did. Maybe five people will read your thesis or your
Right.
paper, right? And and I always say, no, 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 but wait a minute. Like it doesn't matter that because you might go in some other route, but I promise you that if you get hired at a restaurant and you have to clean the toilet, because you have a PhD, you're going to approach that cleaning job much more differently than if you didn't have a PhD, especially if you would have done microbiology. you know?
Yeah.
And so I think people have this misconception that now I'm a specialist and I gotta stick with this. Otherwise, I'm not gonna succeed. And I agree with you. They're looking for that formula. How many years do I need to put in? How many years will it take? What courses do I need to have? And it's what I need to have. It's not necessarily what I need to learn or experience as I go along, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. People look at an online job search. You find a job description, and it's got bullets of things they'd like to have, and that reinforces this formula approach. They think, "Ooh, I need to exactly match that, just like I did in university." That's just a tool the companies use, and it's really not very good. I can tell you, as a hiring manager, it's the best we have. But it's what's really behind that is a hiring manager who has something in their group that's not getting done, and they've gotten approval from the vice president to hire somebody, and they're looking for a human being who can come in and help them with their team. And especially at a PhD scientist level, they're not looking for just a checklist. That's the way the job description appears. They need a human who can come into their team. They're fun to work with. They're creative. They can be dynamic and help solve problems. That's pretty hard to actually describe in a job description. And so that's what reinforces that kind of thinking, but that's not really what is needed.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit, David, about when uh, a scientist is getting ready to start the game.
Mhm.
Okay. What are can we talk a little bit about the courage that is required to be successful in like starting this shift? I mean, it
Yeah.
takes some courage, doesn't it? You took a leap. You asked your prof.
Mhm.
She said, I have no idea about industry. You're on your own. And that was the first. I really enjoyed your guidance here because you said, no, 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 go talk to people. So it sounds like you might have not talked to enough people at that time to really know what you were getting into or what you were getting out of. But, the courage that you took to say, okay, Well, it's a black box, but I'm going to go for it because I know that that's not what I like.
It absolutely is courage. That's a great point that you make, Tommy. I have seen people discuss the difference between confidence and courage. We talk a lot about, confidence, but confidence comes from prior data. Oh, I've done this enough times. I'm confident I can do it again. Making the leap into industry is not that. It's going to be different. There are going to be things you haven't done. You have to take the courage and say, I don't really know what I'm going to face. I don't really know how it's going to go, but I have strengths that are valuable. I know that. And I'm going to get in there and take the risk. I mean, this gets back to why I say it's a game, because in a game, you have to take risks, you have to take actions, and you don't really know what's going to come out of it. Maybe the easiest visual example is soccer or football, depending on where you're from and what you call it. You can't overanalyze taking a shot, right? You have to see an opportunity and jump on it and know, yeah, you might miss. And that's
Yeah.
not the end of the world, right? You don't die if you miss a goal. They don't kick you off the team if you miss a goal. What they need is you get in there and you try it again, you get better. But part of it is taking that risk, and that does require courage. I think many of us with PhDs, we've gotten used to using our intelligence to mitigate risk, to learn the right answer. And by the time we have to speak about it or talk about it or act, we're pretty sure we're right. That's not the game. And you absolutely need that courage to say, well, I don't know, but I'm going to take a shot and I'm going to work at it and get better and do it. And I mean, I spent the first 2 years in industry, honestly, thinking I was going to get fired. I didn't mess up,
Yeah.
but I was working in Silicon Valley with alongside people that had graduated from Stanford University and Caltech. And I just thought, I'm not as smart as them. I don't know what I'm doing here at times, right?
Yeah.
But I found a way to win with my strengths. It worked. I had to have that courage is the point.
Yeah.
I didn't have to know everything. And by sticking with it, I learned the game, and
Yeah.
really so glad I did. It was a great development.
So, and how can we take that? I really can, I would love to pick a little bit apart that comment. How do we take that visual of, oh, they are so much smarter than me, they're so much better prepared, they went to Stanford, they went to whatever, MIT, Caltech, whatever it might be, that it was at a higher um let's say at a higher ranking than you, or whatever your perception is, that those people are better than you. How do we take that and turn it into this perspective of, I admire these people because they have these qualities. What can I do to improve in order to get there? Rather than this, like, oh, self-deprecating, I'm not as good, which we all do, right? It's like we see somebody that's smart and you're like, oh, I'm not as smart as that person. And so on. How can and I've always tried to take the other route, the other perspective of saying, wow, this person is somebody to be admired, and they have qualities that I want to approximate.
Yeah, this is an excellent question, Tommy. So I mentioned already, my wife is she's a psychologist. She actually does leadership training, and she travels and speaks much like I do, right? But she talks to
Yes.
CEOs, so I joke that she makes like 3 times what I do because. But one of the things she talks about is growth mindset. There's, growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is this idea that we have certain strengths and that's what we're going to have. She likens it to a card game. You get certain cards and that's what you have.
Mm.
And the one as PhDs we often think of as the smart card. And it's like, are you smart? If you are, play the heck out of that. If you're not, well, forget it. You're not going to get anywhere. This idea that we have a set of strengths and things we can do, and that's what we have got, and we got to live with it, is not really the way it works. A growth mindset is much more about realizing we can develop and we can improve these areas if we are willing to dig in and do it. If you take the fixed mindset approach, you're going to tend to avoid challenge because, like, I'm not sure I've got that card and I don't want to lose. You might tend to avoid feedback because it sounds like, oh, David, you don't have the right card.
Mm.
But if we approach it as this is an opportunity for me to learn what I can improve, feedback is valuable. They're helping me see where I can grow. If I embrace that instead of running away from it, if I
Yeah.
embrace challenge, this is where the risk comes in, right? If I have the courage to embrace a challenge, knowing, yeah, I might not fail this time. She says, fail better each time in pursuit of awesome, right? You keep getting better
Yes.
at it, improving. That is the difference. It's the courage to take this growth mindset approach. Look at people who are better than you, and instead of envying them or instead of, feeling like, "Ah, I'll never do that. So what can I learn from them? Because I can get better." And it's a great attitude. It's absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I so agree. And you do see the difference between that optimistic mindset in people and how they continue to improve. Because it's about me getting better day to day, not me getting better than somebody else, right?
yeah.
The somebody else is me yesterday. What can I do today to improve myself today than how I was yesterday?
It's just yes, and it is just a different way of approaching any challenge. I tell a story in my workshops it came from my last job. So, in short, it's about approaching a challenge. We scientists, we PhDs tend to look at it and try and predict whether we will win or lose. Can I do this or can I not? Right. And this is this right way, right answer thing. People who are successful in business, they just have a different approach. They get in there and say, I will figure it out as I go. So this story comes from my last job. I was doing business development, and that meant I traveled a lot with the CEO to go visit customers. And so at the end of the day, we'd often be sitting in the hotel bar, a couple of beers, talking about war stories from work or whatever. He was a hockey player. He liked to play hockey. And so he would talk about the old guy hockey that he would play once a week, right? And I don't remember what we were talking about one day. He was talking about hockey. And he said, Dave, when I step out on the ice, I never consider we might not win the game. And my scientist brain clicks in. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? How can you possibly not consider you would lose, right? Look at the data. Do you
Right.
win every game? Of course not. What are you? I don't understand. Are you delusional? And it took me a minute to figure out he wasn't saying he didn't think they could lose. He's just like, trying to predict that at the beginning of the game is pointless. Why would
Yeah.
I do that? The game is
Right.
won out there on the ice. So I approach it as though every game can be won. It is our job to figure out how to do that. And I can't do that at the beginning. I have to see how it plays out. And at every
Sure.
point, decide what do we do to win? That is a far more effective attitude. So it wasn't about being delusional or not. It was about what attitude does he approach it with? And I realized, yeah, people who are successful in business and life, they don't try to predict ahead of time, oh, is this going to work out or not, or whatever. They have the courage to jump in and say, I don't know, but I'm going to go in believing it's winnable. And that's the best attitude to figure out how to win it as I go
Yeah.
along.
And I really love your recommendation also of it's in your attitude when you encounter adversity, when you encounter problems. It's in your attitude of how you take on those challenges, whether you get we all have, self-doubt. We all have
Yeah.
days where we're not as uplifted or optimistic or as productive. But those those days, if we counter those days with seeing and taking the attitude of, oh, this is happening to me, what lessons do I have to take from this situation, or what can I do to improve or to get better? I really think that that is such an important message to the listeners of Pathfinder, because I think everybody should realize that the journey is the journey.
Yeah.
There is no right or wrong, no left or right that you can do.
Yeah, Tommy, that is so important. That is so important. That's all I can say. I guess
Yeah.
It makes so much difference. I mean, the story I told you about this book, that
Yeah.
was that approach, right?
Yeah.
Looking at it sort of formula based, I could have said, "Oh man, my whole business is upside down. This is what I do, and now 7 months of it is canceled. That is objectively bad, and that will harm me."
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I can approach it that way if I
Right.
want.
Yeah.
But if I instead say, look, I can't change it, how can I embrace it? How can I
That's
turn
right.
this into a win?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just approach it with that attitude.
Yeah.
I found that. And that resulted in this book that it's the kind of the theme now of so much of what I do.
Yeah.
And I turned it into a win.
Yeah.
You have to have that approach. That is so important for
I,
success.
I love that, and that you lived through that, right? You took that adversity, and instead of like binge watching movies and
Right?
TV, you said, no, 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 I gotta get to work. I have to start this thing. And tell us, if we can tantalize the listeners to pick up the book and read it, tell us the top three habits out of the five that you describe in the book that you would want them to hear.
Yeah, sure, sure. So, that boy, out of top three, I think the first one I would say is scientists who are successful learn to figure out what matters and what doesn't.
Mm.
We are so used to, we're responsible. We do everything, right? We have a checklist, we do it all. Being successful is about deciding what you don't, what is, doesn't matter, what isn't going to get you to the results that you need. And it can be tough sometimes to say, I'm not going to do this, but it's important to identify what really gets you to your goals, those things that are important, and find the things that aren't going to get you there, whether this is in your life or in your business,
Mhm.
in your work project, and don't do them. So that's the first one. Figure out what matters and what doesn't matter. The second one, as I like to say, be effective, not smart. We get so used to being smart and having to prove we're smart sometimes. We think, I've got a PhD. I better make sure people realize that I earned that and I deserve it.
Yeah.
And that can keep us from being effective because it can keep us from learning from other people. It can make us feel like we have to show people we're right instead of saying, oh boy, I totally messed that up. Or going to somebody with less training, in a job environment, you can learn a lot from a technician who didn't even go to college, but has great hands-on experience with something. You have to be able to say, I'm going to go learn from this person that has a very different background than me. That is a huge part of being effective.
Yeah.
So it really is important. So be effective, not smart. The third one I think is probably the most important one is learn to make decisions without all the data you might want. And this is, I mentioned that we're used to lots of preparation and data collection, and we don't speak, we don't publish a paper, we don't give a talk until we're pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
That's not the way life works. It's not the way industry works. You have to take that shot and you don't really know if it's going to work or not. And this is one of the biggest complaints I get from industry managers. I can't get my PhDs to make a decision because
Oh,
they're not certain yet.
okay.
They want to go collect more data as though there's a right answer and they're going to find it with enough data. And it's the wrong approach.
Mhm. Mhm.
I teach them in that I say, when you're making a decision and you get down to where there's two or three options, we all know this from our personal life. And you're sitting there thinking, I don't know which is the right one, the best one. If I just had more data, but that becomes a procrastination uh, technique, right? That's really
Mm.
what you're doing. I say, pick one, make a decision, and then work to make your choice the right decision.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. That again, so much courage.
Yeah.
Pick, take the courage and pick, and then work towards it. That's all in It's a Game, Not a Formula book. David, I'm so thrilled that we got this chance to hear a little bit about your experience and how that has shaped your career so far in helping lost souls like us scientists to at least shed some light on that black box. Are there any questions that I didn't ask that you wish I would have asked you in this interview? Anything that you want to comment as we finish off here?
Boy, and I mean, nothing that I feel was missed. You asked some great questions, Tommy, and they get to so many of the important things. I think what I'll just say is maybe to sum it all up, we get a view of this traditional path, what a scientist should do, right? We should do research, we should work in a lab, and ideally as a professor. And it can be hard for us to see past that and all the vast number of opportunities, places where we can bring our strengths and have exciting, rewarding careers and make a difference in the world, which I that's really important to me and to most of us, right? It's not just something that pays you a salary, but what really is success. It's making a difference.
Yeah.
And that is so important for us to realize. So get out there, talk to people. If you find something you think might be interesting, learn about it. Talk to people who do it. You might find an amazing career path that you never imagined yourself doing that turns out to be the most rewarding thing you ever did. I'm certainly doing that now. If you said, well, would you want to be speaking and a mentor, a career mentor, or whatever label you want to give me, I was probably, no, why would I want to do that? And yet it is the most exciting, rewarding thing I've ever done. So
Awesome.
that's
So
my
awesome.
takeaway.
And, my takeaways are attitude, and like have the right attitude, have the right perspective, a healthy attitude, a winning and a growth mindset, but also the courage to take that leap and say, no, this is really what I can do. And no matter what problems I encounter, we're going to be able to solve them, because it's not just me, right? It's everybody that can help me. David Giltner, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, the founder and CEO of TurningScience, a company dedicated to teach scientists how to transition from academia to industry. Thank you so much for all your insight, and thank you for being our Pathfinder today.
Thank you, Tommy. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.